Hi, Stu Harrison. Welcome back to the Think Tank Road to Recovery series. We're talking to a number of people in the business community to get a sense of what issues businesses have been worried about, but also need to start worrying about when it comes to recovery and the easing of restrictions. I'm pleased to welcome Rhonda Keenan from Peterborough and Kawarthas Economic Development, the lead agency for economic development for both the city and county of Peterborough, economic development and tourism as well. Obviously a busy time for both of us. Rhonda, I was reflecting as we prepared for this that I'm sure you'll remember March the 11th when we both presented as a joint two agencies presenting our annual business summit. And I think we'll agree that if we'd done that on the 12th, we wouldn't have held it. We would have had to cancel it because it was right then that we found ourselves in the middle of a pandemic. So
Oh,
how about your own perspective on that?
absolutely. Well, thanks so much for having this interview. I appreciate it. March 11th. I mean, when you start to think back, we were still trying to figure out should we be shaking hands still? And remember,
Mhm.
we had actually said, what is the right way of doing that? Like, do you just kick each other's shins, or do you, do an elbow, or do you just wave at people? And so think about where that was in March and to where we are now.
Amazing.
Nobody even contemplated face masks and gloves and the term physical distancing, social distancing didn't even really exist back then. So
Yeah,
it has been a whirlwind.
for sure. And in those early days, once everything, sort of started shutting down, as agencies, yourselves, the DBIA, Community Futures, the Innovation Cluster, uh, we were meeting literally every day. We were on a call together at 3 o'clock. So it's almost like we're talking about the old days, right? But we were just trying to figure it out. Like businesses needed to know the information, and we were trying to gather all of that insight.
You're right. I think when we first started, again to that March 11th, March 12th date, when we realized, oh my goodness, this is changing and it's changing in a very harsh way. I think our first Team PTBO meeting, we said, okay, well, we'll meet once a week. And then the very next day, we said, this isn't going to work. We need to meet every single day because the circumstances were changing so quickly. Who was shutting down? How are we shutting down? How are we responding? And I think it was important for us to pool our resources together to say this is going to be big. This is going to have significant impacts across the entire region. We need to make sure that we're all doing complementary things to reach as many businesses and support them through this without any real roadmap. I think that was the hard part is we were trying to put some sort of structure and some sort of plan in place to be able to
Mhm.
adapt on the fly and support business. And that's really what the Team PTBO group was all about is how do we get in front of as many businesses to get what is the impact, what are you worried about, how are you coping right now, and what can we be doing as agencies to support to help get through as many
Yeah.
businesses as possible.
I love the word roadmap, and I'm going to jump on that because that's essentially where we're at now. Things have shifted from information on government programs to information on recovery and reopening and safety protocols for staff and customers, and trying to rebuild that customer confidence. Feeling safe to go back into a business and sort of return to some sort of new normal. And I want to give you credit for very, very early on, like literally a couple of months ago, a few weeks into it, you were already looking at the road to recovery and starting to draft a recovery plan, which has now received approval from both councils. It's been officially cast as the Mayor and Wardens Recovery Task Force, Economic Recovery Task Force. And you showed some real leadership in getting on that early and recognizing that we will need a roadmap as a community, as a business community. So I'm wondering if you can just paint a picture of the task force. And we've had several calls already, we meeting on a weekly basis, some 40 people, so getting a lot of perspective from the business community. So just describe what the task force is all about in your own words.
Yeah, thanks, Stu. I think, the Team PTBO group was a group of agencies, but we recognized that we needed to hear from business. And yes, we did issue hundreds and hundreds of, surveys and received hundreds and hundreds of responses back. But we really wanted to be able to hear from business directly across the region, across a variety of sectors, and really see what the immediate issues are, and try to use those resources around the table to fix and resolve some of those issues that businesses are reporting on. And that really is it in a nutshell. So I think the first couple of weeks of meeting, it was, what's the issue? Here's what we're hearing. This is what we need to overcome. And some of the actions are easier. When businesses were saying, we love to be open, we need PPE. That was easy for us to be able to go around and find out who's selling it, who's doing the kits, who has them, and put that into one place. And the Chamber and PKD have both been able to get that information out to our members and our partners and our businesses. So that was something that was important. Other issues that are coming up are going to be harder to resolve. And I think that the challenge is we're trying to come up with Peterborough and the Kawarthas solutions, but really these are global problems.
Yeah. Everybody
across the globe is facing this in some way. And so the nice part about economic development is that there are a lot of resources, and we all tend to rob and duplicate from each other. So if some community in the country is doing something well, and it's working for them, we always share our best practices and say, hey, this could be something that addresses the needs of our businesses. So that really is the purpose of the task force, and I think it's starting to work. We've been tracking issues that have been identified by the businesses, and then looking at which partners are able to best provide solutions. Some of it's private sector, some of it's agencies, some of it's the great work and advocacy of the chambers of commerce throughout this region that are doing that. So I think it's nice that we're all playing to our strengths and recognizing who should be doing what, and sharing the burden.
Right. It's very sector specific as well. The calls are very impressive because, as much as there's 40 people on the call, people are really just weighing in when there's something specific to know about their perspective. So it's really nice to spend a full 2 hours talking to people from all different sectors of the business community, and to get their perspective, because as agencies, as the Chamber, as a lobby group, for you working with municipal levels of government, you need to know what are the issues, what is it that people need. And I also like the way that you've got it set up, the task force set up into specific action items, but short term, medium term, long term, because it allows a lot of focus when it comes down to the work that needs to be done this week, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we were trying to build the plan, and like you had indicated, we started early with the plan, and we do have a lot of resources. We are members of the International Economic Development Council, and we leverage those tools and resources that they give us. And so when they were starting to outline some disaster recovery plans that have taken place across, even the US, we were able to look at them and sort of build, you need short term, here's the immediate needs of business. And then how do you get to the medium stage when businesses are starting to get to reopen? What are they going to need then? And then ultimately our goal is to get back to our new normal and say, how are we continuing to grow the economy in Peterborough and the Kawarthas region beyond COVID? So I think that's sort of the longer goal. We want to make sure that we hope that we're not in COVID recovery phase any longer than we absolutely need to be. But we always recognize that the health of the community comes first and foremost. And I think our businesses are very respectful of that. And I think that's why the task force is working so well. Obviously, under the good leadership and the co-chairs, the mayor and the warden do a great job of keeping pace and making sure that everybody has a voice around the table. And the businesses, we have to give them kudos, because they are giving 2 hours of their time every single week to tell us what we need to know, and highlighting those things in a very respectful manner, but highlighting what's important. And I think that's been helpful to be able to say, here's what we've heard. And I think the intention is that this will not go on forever, that we want to get back to a new normal. And I think everybody is at least on that page, but those businesses are trying to run their business, deal with employees, deal with their children at home, doing the schoolwork with them, as well as then participating in this task force. So I don't think we can thank them enough for sharing this good information.
There's an expression that says that if you don't have a destination, then any road will take you there. And so I think it's important that we have the recovery plan. And because I think there are things that we can control. I think post-pandemic, everyone wants to get back to normal, but I don't think anyone really has the insight to be able to say for sure what that's actually going to look like. I, for one, think there will be a fairly significant shift, as much as we can, to a hyper local economy when it comes to some of the supply chains, food supply, where you shop, how you spend your money. There's going to be a lot of change, and I think the more we can get out in front of that and help to mold that change, I think the better off that we'll be as an economy, as a local economy in Peterborough City and County. I want to thank you for your leadership. I know I've done that already, but you've really shown what an economic development agency is all about, and I think the task force is a shining example of that. So why don't you direct people? I know it's all online, from the scorecard of the action items to the report itself. Why don't you tell people where they can find it?
So peterboroughed.ca/recovery. If you can't remember the recovery part, just peterboroughed.ca is our website, and it will definitely get you there.
All right. Thank you, Rhonda. I really appreciate it. Rhonda Keenan, Peterborough and the Kawarthas Economic Development, and we'll see you on the next Zoom call.
Thanks, Stu.
Thank you.
Have a great day.